everyone, welcome to today's episode of Brewed for Change, an initiative by Green Frontier Capital, one of India's leading climate tech focused businesses. I'm Ritika, your host for today, and I'm really happy to be chatting with Mr. Tom Lytton-Dickie today, who is the founder of Meaningful Business. I'll let Tom introduce himself, but also would like to specify here that Tom has been a very close partner to GFC in his journey to India as well. So, Tom, please tell us a bit more about yourself and your journey and take it from.
Yeah, hi Ritika, and hi everyone, and thank you for inviting me on. It's great to be here. So my name is Tom Lytton-Dickey, founder and CEO of Meaningful Business. Before that, I co-ran a business media brand, mainly focused in the UK and the US, called Hot Topics, which was all around the tech industry and supporting leaders who were driving change within that. So we would have a big community of tech founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, investors, corporate leaders who are driving digital transformation. Our chairman was the CEO of Forbes, and we had the person who launched LinkedIn in Europe on our board, and they helped us really combine content, community, events, and awards to nurture this network. And I kind of fell in love with entrepreneurship in the process. And the bit which really interested me was the intersection of, I guess, entrepreneurship, innovation, and societal impact. And we could see this burgeoning kind of tech for good space growing, and also, I guess, purpose-led business as a thing. And that was really what drew me into building Meaningful Business. And we just felt that if we could combine some of the methodologies we've been employing within the tech space to the kind of profit and purpose space and create something which was globally accessible, it could be quite powerful. And so that led us to launch Meaningful Business.
Super. And can you tell us a bit more about what Meaningful Business is? How have you seen your network grow the last few years? How have your interactions been with people?
Yeah, absolutely. So Meaningful Business, in short, is a global network of leaders combining profit and purpose to help solve, pressing social and environmental issues all around the world. It is truly global. We've got members now in over 140 countries, and the main, I guess, profiles of our members are either entrepreneurs who are running impact-focused startups of all shapes and size, some very early stage, interesting idea or piece of innovation, all the way through to well-funded scale-up entities. The second major group is investors, and so we try and bring in as many forms of capital into network as possible that align to the various stages that a startup might be at. And so we help investors with their deal flow and accessing the right kind of investment opportunities that fits their criteria. And the third main group, as you'd imagine, are corporate leaders. And so that can be anywhere across the C-suite, obviously majoring in sustainability or human rights or diversity and inclusion. Also, we're seeing areas like procurement grow very quickly, and where there's a real interest in engaging with the startup ecosystem. So that's about 80% of the community. Remaining 20% comes from other complementary actors in the impact space. So it might be UN bodies. We work closely with UN Global Compact and their various chapters around the world, UNDP, UNITAR, the training and research arm of the UN, other NGOs and charities, and then lastly, academia, where we're seeing a huge number of courses and cohorts pop up within institutions around the world focused on sustainable business or social entrepreneurship, and then trying to connect the talent that exists within those universities with our member companies. In terms of growth, we've seen major growth across Africa and Asia in the last 2 or 3 years. And so, 25% of our network comes from Africa now, which is incredible. Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa are the 3 main countries within that continent, but we're seeing growth across the region. Similarly with Asia, and for us, it's all about curation. So we're not chasing volume. We really want the right kinds of members to join the network, so we can keep that intimacy and ability to work on quite a tailored basis with our community.
That's wonderful to hear, and I'll follow up on the Asia part of it. But I wanted to understand what the benefit of being a meaningful business network is.
So for me, the main one, and taking the programs we run aside, but it's the peer-to-peer learning that you can access. And we see so much similar work being done around the world, people trying to solve the same kinds of issues within their community, in their country, in their region, that the benefit of being able to interact and learn from somebody who is trying to solve a similar issue is huge. Whether there's actually a kind of formal collaboration to be done, or it's more just being able to be in touch with that person and share your challenges, share your journey, share your frustrations in many cases. We think that's super powerful, but unfortunately, people tend to exist within silos, whether that is by geography or by sector, or even sometimes within larger companies by role type. And so by trying to break those silos down, it can be really powerful. And so that, I would say, is the main one. And then obviously we've spent the last 5 years really understanding where there's common challenges across the network and facing people in the profit and purpose space. And so all of our work is aligned to those challenges, and that whether that's helping entrepreneurs access capital, investors access the right kind of deals, corporates thinking about what kind of innovation they want to bring into their supply chain to make it more sustainable, and therefore creating revenue opportunities for social businesses in the process. We do a bunch of work across, capacity building for leaders, and we have a mentorship program that is up and running over the last 3 or 4 years now. And so there's lots in there, but I think I would say peer-to-peer is key.
That's actually a wonderful mission. Also because in climate itself, we've seen that a lot of discourse has started in the last few years, especially talking about climate justice. And I'm sure it aligns very well with your mission as well. So let me take a step back and actually revisit your point on your expansion to Africa and Asia, and double down on India, which is how have you seen your Indian community grow, and do you see India as a crucial driver to the SDGs?
So, I mean, it's grown fabulously is the short answer. So our flagship program, and I should have mentioned this, is the MB100, which is an award recognizing outstanding work in the profit and purpose space, particularly where those leaders are trying to help achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So that's been running for 5 years now. Nominations are currently open. I should also say that for the 6th edition. But over the last 3 years, India has been the most represented country, both in terms of nominees and winners on the awards. And so it's grown phenomenally in that sense. And I think also the diversity and range of work that's being done across the country, clearly within the climate space, but also on the social side, if you like, of the SDGs as well. And there's no way, India is an absolutely crucial driver of the SDGs. I think population is 1.4 billion. That's roughly 1 in 6 people on the planet is in India. The amount of innovation that's coming out of the country is incredible. And so I think it really can be a leader in setting the standard for what SDG progress looks like. We had our first event, which I'm sure we'll go on to, in India last month, in Bangalore and also in Mumbai, and the energy and the enthusiasm for this space was so palpable. And so we're really looking forward to doing a lot more work in the country.
You actually touched upon my next question for you, which was about the India event. How was the experience in India? How was it reaching out to people who joined a very different sort of an event where it was closed doors, invite only, focused on peer-to-peer learning, like you mentioned earlier? And how do you see India playing an impact in your overall vision for over the next few years?
So in terms of the event, I would honestly say it's probably been my most satisfying thing we've done as Meaningful Business so far. We've worked with lots of these leaders for 3 or 4 years now, and actually just meeting them in person for the first time was just a lovely experience, and the warmth and the generosity of the culture in general, but also within our community was really great to see. And then, as you say, we tried to do a different kind of event. So the first half of it, obviously, we had people on stage and we were showcasing some of the most recent cohort of winners. We had, Sri Jayant Sinha in conversation with Nishit Desai, which I thought as a start for the event to just set the scene on what the opportunities and challenges are for within climate and sustainability in general was a real eye-opener. And I think the audience benefited from that. But then, the afternoon sessions, which were much more participatory and small working groups, and really focus on the challenges that are preventing some of these leaders scaling and driving the change they want to see. That was also very powerful, and that's really how meaningful business wants to work. We don't want to create kind of hierarchies where it's just people on stage and other people passively listening. It's really about engagement and participation and people helping each other. So it was lovely to see those formats play out in person. And then, India is going to be our first in-country, first regional chapter. We're going to launch in-country programming. We're currently hiring for somebody to lead that, which is quite exciting. So if anyone's listening who wants to build a meaningful business in India, please do get in touch. And we're also in the process of building a coalition of partners across, corporates, development agencies, investment funds, academia, other service providers that can really help purpose-driven leaders across the country succeed. And the key bit there is we want the in-country programming to complement and interact what we're doing globally. So we can help with the international expansion of Indian startups and also help position India as a really attractive investment proposition for international investors who are looking at these spaces really seriously. And so that's our plan for the next few years.
Sounds wonderful and very exciting for all the startups in India, as well as the people who actually want to be part of the MB100 list as well. So you talked about the MB100 program, but I'm going to come back to that now. What is the program all about? What is the evaluation process like? Since nominations are now open, let's also talk about what a startup or what a business needs to do to be able to qualify to that list, and what are some of the benefits that one can expect from being featured on this prestigious list?
Yeah, so the first thing to say is that the MB100 recognizes individuals rather than companies. So, we champion and celebrate entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders within large organizations who are driving real impact. The criteria for nomination is pretty broad, and then the judging process is extremely thorough, as you'd imagine. Last year we had 29 judges from all around the world, some really, really senior leaders like the UN Assistant Secretary General, investors from around the world, other corporates who kind of gone through that journey themselves. And so we really look for innovation that is going to be able to drive impact at scale. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to be doing that now. So we also welcome nominations from micro entrepreneurs who are leading small teams but have the potential for real change. Clearly, in the judging, we make sure that we compare apples to apples, if you like. So you're not going to be judging a corporate leader versus a micro entrepreneur. But then once you're on the list, it's completely flat structure. So it's just recognizing these 100 leaders every year. We don't actually have categories as we publish the final 100. And then, the benefits are great. You access the community. So going back to that peer-to-peer point, and then all of our partnerships that we form with brands, again, provide something of value to the members. So our headline partner is EY, the global consultancy firm, and they have an amazing suite of services they provide on a pro bono basis to winners. Consulting programs, mentorship, digital tools. They run workshops with our winners and alumni. And that's another, I think, key point about the MB100. It is a lifetime fellowship, if you like. It's not an accelerator program where you're in it for a year and then you kind of graduate. We're there for our network for as long as they need us. And so it's grown in stature year on year, I would say. And I think it's a good thing to be part of.
It's incredible. And especially what you said about comparing apples to apples, because it encourages everyone to apply. And let me just actually ask you a bit more about the Indians who have been featured on this list as well. Where have you seen the nominations coming from?
Yeah, so it varies. We welcome, self-nominations, if you like, and also peer nominations. One of the best things I think we've done to uncover the right kind of leaders is form partnerships with relevant organizations around the world, and they could be, again, a UN body like Global Compact that's got regional chapters, and they will do a call to nominations from their members. Equally, it could be an investor like Green Frontier Capital that have got relevant portfolio companies that should be at very least aware of the award and then thinking about if they can put one of their leaders forward for it. And so we see lots of nominations come through those kind of partners. One of the things we have loved about the growth in India as well is getting nominations from not just the major cities, but some of the other parts of the country. Like, one of the 2023 winners was from Nagaland, and she presented at last month's event, and doing fabulous work in the education space. And so really trying to tap into parts of the country and globally that maybe don't always get the same kind of access and recognition that they deserve.
I also want to talk about sustainability of it, because obviously it's a very, very important part of all corporate goals as well as for individuals. So how is the community's focus on sustainability over the last few years? Are people actively trying to incorporate it as one of their goals, or is it sort of happening on its own now with the trends evolving?
So, I mean, I guess for us, every single member has sustainability as their core driver of what they're trying to do ultimately. And wherever they're sitting in the ecosystem, that really is the driver of their work. I guess in terms of the trends that we've seen, there's a lot more intersectionality. So, rather than just looking at, say, climate on its own or the social side of sustainability, understanding where there's crossover. So, it could be, for example, a circular economy startup hiring people from marginalized communities, whether it's with disabilities or formerly incarcerated people, etc. And so I think having that dual impact is something we're seeing a lot more now, and using the MB100 again as a gauge. Lots of nominations over the last 2 years have looked at where there is intersectionality, which again is a criteria for assessment. I mean, there's still clearly so much work to be done around the world, and unfortunately, lots of these issues aren't going anywhere, and in some cases are getting worse. And so, I think the incentive for everybody around the world to keep doing as much as they can is there. But yeah, we're I guess within the apocalyptic news cycle, we can't help but feel optimistic because we're surrounded by leaders doing great work. And so I think it's just a case of trying to help them succeed, and also encouraging more people to join the meaningful business movement. And maybe that's another thing to mention is, how can you tell the stories and gain more visibility and awareness for the good work that is being done to show that it is possible. And we're not saying that profit is a dirty word. People should be trying to build sustainable businesses from a commercial perspective. And so we need more examples of where it is really working. And I guess that's what we're trying to do.
And on the lines of sustainability, since a lot of the problems that are trying to be solved by the meaningful business community are problems that are hard to quantify, cannot possibly talk about the number of people you've impacted through different ways. So have you seen members actually trying to quantify the impact that they've had? Do you think that the MB community and the peer-to-peer learning can actually be a great forum for people to come together and share ideas on how they can actually quantify the impact that they do?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a major challenge for this space in general, and wherever you're sitting within it, whether you're an entrepreneur, investor, corporate, development agency, actually being able to credibly measure the positive impact and maybe unintended negative impact of your work is key. And luckily, I think now there is a lot more education around that. There's more service providers who are coming up with interesting methodologies and tools and technologies that make the process easier and more streamlined. But I think there's a long way to go. There's still not enough consistency or standardization about which metrics people should be measuring. how to collect that data, how to communicate that data. And I think sometimes, particularly we see with entrepreneurs, they're being pulled in various directions by by funders and by donors in some cases, who are requesting various metrics that aren't necessarily the ones the entrepreneur would measure themselves. And so I think we need to come together as a space and have these conversations to say, how can we make this as efficient a process as possible? But yeah, to your point, I think there is lots of peer-to-peer learning that can be done, and some companies are doing it really well, and others are maybe starting that journey, and so could learn from them. But for us, it's one of our key pillars of work, and we want to do a lot more. And as Meaningful Business ourselves, we want to be measuring our own work more effectively, and they're really kind of understanding what the collective impact of the community is.
Absolutely agree. And in fact, at Green Frontier Capital, we really believe in the power of putting impact into numbers, because that's when you actually not just understand the impact of the solution, but also the problem itself. Because if one company is solving for a certain amount and it's only maybe 0.1% of the larger problem, you sort of see that in numbers and you're able to gauge how large the issue is. So we also try to encourage all our portfolio companies to actually quantify their climate impact to the extent possible. And we also make it a point to publish that data on our website every month, so that any aspirational startup or any company that's actually trying to quantify the data or trying to benchmark against data can go and look at those startups and see those numbers as benchmarks. So completely agree with your point. And I think this comes from a lot of peer-to-peer, because you see what other companies are doing. And that's when you actually realize that you also have the potential of tracking that particular metric.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it drives collective performance, because you can see what's possible. And it also, if we can create competition in a good way, which leads to more impact by accurate reporting, then that's a great thing.
Absolutely agree. So how do you see the role of venture capital funds as part of the MB community? We obviously were a part of the Meaningful Business event that happened earlier this year. And of course, it was a wonderful learning opportunity for all the people who were there representing VC funds as well. How do you see VCs playing a long-term role in this space?
So they are one of the absolute key players in this space and the MB network. So fundraising, as you know, is the number one challenge that the entrepreneurs in our network and in this space face and articulate. And they're constantly trying to raise the right kind of capital to fuel their growth. And in many cases, VC funding is the right answer to that. Not always, it should be said, but in some cases it's grants or other forms of capital. But for lots of the members that are on that kind of high growth trajectory, VC funding is right. And I think there needs to be more awareness and more conversation between entrepreneurs and VCs in this space about, we hear a lot about patient capital. And so I think for VCs, really understanding the time it takes to build these businesses, they're trying to solve really, really tricky, complex challenges. But the opportunity is huge. And so we are constantly trying to bring in the right investors and VCs that align to the different needs of our entrepreneurs.
I hear you on that. Absolutely agree that it's a game of patient capital, especially what we've seen in climate, because most of these technologies are just being built, right? Especially in India. So a couple of concluding questions for you, Tom, since you're an entrepreneur yourself. I'd love to hear from you on any sort of advice that you have for budding entrepreneurs, people who are looking to create a positive impact in society through their business.
Wow. Well, so firstly, I think it is, if you can find something that you really love and believe in and feel passionate about, and you think can be a commercial success, it is just the best thing you can try and build. And so I would encourage anyone who is thinking about that, who has an idea, who has something they really think they can drive change within, to go and do it and try, and don't be, afraid of failure. You might fail once, you might learn and do something amazing the next time. It might take you 2 or 3 times, but keep going. And I would encourage people to be part of networks, whether it's meaningful business or otherwise. It can be lonely, and particularly as you said, when you're trying to solve issues which are very, very difficult. It takes a long time. It can be frustrating. You're going to get a lot of no's. If you're trying to raise funding, you might get 50 no's before you get that one yes. So it takes resilience and perseverance, and nothing that is worth doing comes quickly. I don't think. I think it has to. You have to earn your right to build something and prove yourself. But if you keep believing that what you're trying to do is the right thing, it eventually will happen.
That's a wonderful piece of advice. And just one final question on the meaningful business side is that, are there any success stories that you would like to share with the audience? I'm sure that people would love to be inspired by what members of the community are.
Yeah, I think for us, it's we hear lots of anecdotes with success stories from across the network. The things which we are most proud of are probably our mentorship scheme, where we've connected now over, I think, 100 leaders to experienced members in the network, and often we see it work both ways. It's kind of reverse mentoring, where someone is a mentor and mentee, and so the benefit from those mentor relationships is huge. Our work connecting entrepreneurs to investors and trying to help them close their next funding round is something which we love doing and are doing more of, and some really interesting new relationships come out of that. And then the last bit is connecting corporates to potential suppliers across the network, so social businesses, and that is one of those beautiful things where it solves problems on both sides. You're providing revenues to the startup and helping the corporate increase the sustainability of their supply chain. So again, that's an area where we are investing a lot of time and energy.
Incredible. And a question that I love to ask all the guests on the show is, who is your role as an entrepreneur, as someone who's trying to create a meaningful business out of a meaningful business? Who is your role?
So I think there's a few, and well, firstly, my dad and uncle were both entrepreneurs, and so growing up, I was surrounded by their stories and their challenges and their successes, and I really admired both of them. My dad ran an NGO in Kenya for a number of years, which was helping to reduce the time it took for aid to reach countries across Africa. And so I was amazed by some of the work that he did. I was an aspiring professional footballer, so that didn't quite make it. I was nowhere near good enough in the end, but I was always, inspired by some of the footballers and just knowing the perseverance again that it takes to get there. And then, honestly, some of the entrepreneurs in our network, that particularly those that are kind of successfully combining profit and purpose. And coming back to that first point, I really love the idea of any entrepreneurship. If you can combine that with solving one of these issues, it's amazing. So we're constantly inspired by our members.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Tom, for joining us today. I'm sure that this podcast is going to inspire a lot of people to incorporate that good that comes with the profit. Thank you so much. And
thank you. Really, really enjoyed it, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.